South Australian football falls into disarray on a day where a Lion takes one of the marks of the year to sink the Cats and the Teague train gathers more steam. This is the round so far presented by KO. And Kane Corns, our big story tonight comes from Marvel Stadium. Ben Brown kicking 10 goals, single-handedly outscoring the Power. Their season now on the rocks.
Unbelievable when you consider they kicked one goal as a team last week. So what a turnaround it was for North Melbourne tonight. This is the big story of it. He's kicked a career high 10 goals. His previous best came back in round 23 of 2017. But it was the ease in which he did it. We'll get to Port Adelaide in a moment. But I felt for their defenders back there, it was so easy. There was no pressure coming on the ball inside 50. And Ben Brown had a field day with this type of delivery. And the likes of Cleary and Jonas had no answers for him. So
he now leads the column by 4. So he kicked those goals today. Jeremy Cameron is out for this weekend with a hamstring for the Giants. So he now has the stranglehold on the Coleman as it sits. Speaking of numbers, have a look at some of these figures that the Power posted post-game. 307 disposals, beaten by more than 200 against the Roos.
Yeah, it was an absolutely pathetic performance from a side that could have pretty much shown up 8th spot tonight. When you see those numbers, they didn't want to be there, which is a pretty strong thing to say about a football club. Look, I think on the whole, up until this point, it's been a reasonable year for Port Adelaide with the young players they've developed, considering the players that left in the off-season. And prior to this, I would have definitely given them a pass mark. Now, they still may make finals. They play Fremantle at home next week, which they will start favourites. But that was completely unacceptable tonight, and they need to take a hard look at themselves. It was a player issue that they looked like they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to apply any pressure, and North Melbourne were far too hungry and too hard around the footy.
This rollercoaster season, it looks like so much of it is built on momentum. Is that the coach to blame? Is it the players? How are we now at round 22 and still we're seeing such a gap in their performances?
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone can answer that. I'm not sure. They don't know themselves why they've been so inconsistent. But they knew, I spoke to them prior to the game, they knew it was going to be a really different North Melbourne side than what went out there last week.
But that shouldn't be Port Adelaide's. They should take that into their own destiny.
Yeah, I understand that. They knew that there was going to be a strong response from a North Melbourne side, which is what I was saying. But for whatever reason, they just did not want to be there tonight. And I can't answer it. They can't answer it. And it's going to be a long week at Port Adelaide as they try and hold on to what is a season that's slipping away.
Now, they left Lycett out again in games against Sydney and Essendon. It worked then, but it had no answer tonight against Todd Goldstein. Laddams and Ryder had no answer.
Amazing to think that at 31 years of age with 230-odd games, Todd Goldstein has produced his best ever game at AFL level. And it was this type of stuff that he did that just set North Melbourne up right from the opening bounce. Now, Laddams is in there in game number 5. He was well and truly beaten. Ken Hinkley went straight to him at quarter time. Ryder's also there. And you're right, Premiership ruckman playing Sandford footy, who came across on a 4-year deal. So they got that selection wrong, but this performance from Todd Goldstein, it included 34 disposals. His previous best was 28, 9 clearances, which is an equal high. He kicked that goal there and 17 score involvements,
17.
which is the most on the ground, and I would say the most of any player in the AFL this year. So toss up who got the 3 votes tonight. Brave umpire not to give it to a full forward who's kicked 10. But Todd Goldstein, probably the most influential player from start to finish.
And how about the 2 former Power players having a field day? Pollock, 32, Pittard, 29, just to rub a bit more salt into the wound.
Yeah, you always set yourself for big games against your old side. I thought Pollock in particular was terrific, and Pittard was solid across half-back. Didn't have a lot to do because there was only 40-odd entries coming through for Port Adelaide in the forward line. But Pollock in particular, disposal went at 81%. Very, very effective tonight.
Now, in Adelaide, it wasn't any better on the other side of town when it comes to the Crows. They had everything to play for and completely butchered it against the Pies.
Well, this was the story for me. Collingwood's defensive system and their pressure around the footy, but more so this vision here. Adelaide had no answers whatsoever. Now, Collingwood kick 11 goals, 7 directly from Crows turnovers. We're showing a couple of them here, but they set up defensively. There was a zone system, a full 18-man zone, where when Adelaide had the ball and they were trying to exit their defensive 50, they couldn't do it. And Collingwood almost dare you to kick that one. They sit off. They allow you to think that there's a free Crows player, but their ability to close quickly. And that man there, Jeremy Howard, the hanger, he took 7 intercept marks tonight. And then this vision here is what I'd be most concerned about if I'm an Adelaide fan or a coach. There's an experienced player, Lynch, just been brushed off like he's an Auskick kid, and then a waltz-in, easy goal. This was the story of the night. So Collingwood keeping Adelaide to 6 goals, and they're back, which is a good story as well.
Both coaches in Adelaide, Ken Hinkley and Don Pike, have 2 years to run on their contract. Who's under more pressure?
Oh, I think they're equally under the most amount of pressure. I think for Adelaide, they have an old list. So that probably gives Ken the points, the fact that he actually has rejuvenated the list and they're in a much better position going towards the future. So it's going to be a very interesting time at Adelaide. They've made probably the most amount of off-field mistakes in the last 2 years of any other club, from the assistant coaches they've let go to the fitness program to the camp, so to the players that they've signed, to the coach that they've signed. So starts at the top at Adelaide, and Andrew Fagan and Brett Burton need to take a fair amount of responsibility for what is on the park at the moment.
Another man, their footy director, Mark Rasciuto, had his say at half-time. He wasn't blaming the personnel, he was blaming something else.
I think their ball movement slowed down too much for mine, Bruce.
Slowed down. Collingwood can see it happening. They're squeezing up and getting the turnover. Yep. So I think Adelaide are going to have to try something different in the second half. I'll be surprised if they go with the same game plan.
And something how after all of that, the Crows lose by 66 points and move above the Power. That just shows how much the Power was smashed at Marvel Stadium. Now, a positive for the Pies, Jamie Elliott kicking 5 goals for the first time since 2015. He had a day out and is our Saturday star.
We've spoken about their forward line all year on this show, and they just look so much better without Mason Cox in the side. As harsh as that sounds, they've been far too predictable all year. So it's almost a blessing that he got injured. As I said, as harsh as that sounds, we wish Mason all the best, but they're so unpredictable now. And this is what happens. You get talent in the forward half, you've got midfield dominance, they're always going to get that because they've got the best ruckman in the game and a very, very solid midfield, and then you let your talent do the rest. So I love their forward line structure. It's even going to get better when De Goey and Stevenson, and I want to play a Darcy Moore down there as well, because you load up the forward line with that amount of talent. Behind the ball, they're solid, midfield solid, and they could make a really nice run at it. They're coming good at the right time.
In the West tonight, the Bombers confirmed their spot in the top 8 with a pretty easy win in the end over the Dockers, but it was their pace that caught our eye.
Yeah, well, this has been the case, isn't it? This is what Essendon, when they're playing well, this is what it looks like. We're going to show a couple of clips here, but ball out in open space from the back line, transition, get it over the back, and then easy walking goals on the back of some talent and some speed. Now, the challenge for them is they haven't been able to do it against good sides. Now, Fremantle are a very, very poor football side, and they have been all year. So they're going to come up against the Collingwood side next week. They're going to try and do what they did to Adelaide tonight, set up the ground, lock it in their forward half, and not allow these easy goals out the back that Ross Lyon and Fremantle allowed tonight.
I think it's an important win for the Bombers, because if they had lost tonight, they would have had everything on the line next week. And they played Hurley off 4 weeks after his shoulder. Heppel's carrying a foot injury. He'll be able to rest next week. Sard's had a hammy as well. So it's an important win for the Bombers. They'll be able to reload for the next fortnight.
Yeah, particularly when it's a short break coming home from Perth, so the team's going to stay there tonight. So before you know it, it's Friday night and they're up against a really good opposition. So it is a bit of a pressure release to know that they are going to play finals. For me, I still think for the Bombers, a win in a final is the pass mark for the year.
Absolutely. Now, it was an umpire tonight in the Wars at Optus Stadium. How about this? Alex Wetton, the umpire, copping one from Schultz tonight from the Dockers.
Yeah, and we're going to take another look at this because it's extraordinary courage here from the umpire. This is a significant blow, and as he's going down, you see it here, he still tries to blow his whistle.
That's incredible.
For the free kick. So well done to him. We've seen umpires carry on in the past and lay down. Not the case there with Alex. That was some serious toughness.
How about this? The Dockers, they farewell Aaron Sandilands and Hayden Ballantyne. This is one of the more extraordinary set of circumstances you'll see after a game.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure who was going to carry Sandy off, so maybe that's the best compromise. I mean, that was the good to come out of it for the Dockers and what's been a really disappointing year. And well done to all those fans who stuck around. Could have been easy for them to go home. They didn't. They were both interviewed by Fremantle legend Matthew Pavlich after the game, and congratulations on amazing careers, both of them. All
right, let's have a look at the bottom half of the top 8 now. The Bombers are in that spot, so they've confirmed their spot in September, but 8th is still on the line. The Crows have the Bulldogs next week, in saying that the Dogs can move into the 8 if they beat the Giants tomorrow. Yeah,
and Hawthorn's still alive somehow. It's just I can't get my head around this season of football. Who would have thought it would have played out like this? For the Western Bulldogs, the great thing is it's in their hands as well. They win both, they're in. And then Adelaide, they're playing the Dogs next week. Now, bit out of their hands as the same with Port Adelaide. So Bulldogs win and they've got it, so it's in their hands.
Ballarat's a massive game next week, that Dogs and Crows game. Now, shows how big the day of footy was when this game comes as late as it has. The Lions moving into top spot on the table, knocking off the Cats coming from behind.
Well, this was just a brilliant, brilliant game of footy. It was a bit of an arm wrestle early, both teams trying to sort of feel each other out, and defensively they were very sound. It opened up late. You can see the score there. Brisbane had to kick 3 goals to win it with 7 minutes to go, and they did just that. Charlie Cameron, once again, proving that he's the best small forward in the game with 5 goals. He had a big influence on this contest, and this mark here to win the game is just amazing. And what a player McCarthy has been since coming from that club, Geelong, this year. So strong in the air. How's
that crowd? The biggest crowd in 10 years at the Gabba. Their 9th straight win. How good would a final be up there?
Oh, I just reckon it's so good for football because it's been tough. I mean, they win 5 games last year. Who would have predicted this? And well done to all the Brisbane fans who have jumped back on, because it was such an intimidating place to go and play footy as an opposition player in the early 2000s when they were dominant. And to see that there again, and they had a massive influence in getting the team over the line. So, significant win for a young side who were challenged under adversity. And they should be pretty proud of the season they've had, with a lot of work to go. I reckon 10 weeks ago we said, why can't they win it? Well, absolutely. They're going to finish top 2 probably now, and in as good a chance as anyone.
Now, the Cats' up and down ledger continues since the bye. Charlie Cameron had 5 goals tonight. He laid an important tackle to get the Lions over the line late. But Chris Scott wasn't so sure when he was asked about whether he might have to rethink some plans for Charlie Cameron if they were to face again in September.
Did you think Charlie was the difference today? I thought he was good late. Kicked a couple of goals. I don't think he had a huge influence on the game, but that's my initial reaction. I thought he took his chances when they were presented, but no. I mean, even if I had a plan, would I tell you? No. But did I misread that? Was he the difference?
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, when you lose by a point and an opposition small forward kicks 5, then clearly he's had a big influence on the game. But any team that plays Brisbane in the finals, I'm not sure there's any team equipped with a small forward that can actually go with Charlie Cameron. So the challenge is going to be there for Geelong, but it's going to be there for West Coast or whoever plays them. Richmond, I mean, who's the small forward from Richmond who's going to be able to do the job on Charlie Cameron? So it's a big weapon they've got.
I just hope those comments don't come back to bite Chris Scott, like the Tom Mitchell, Nathan Buckley ones a few years ago when he said they didn't have influence, he had 50 touches and the like. Just saying, on the Cats, they're choosing now in round 22 to not play a ruckman. They've got 4 on their list. They went with Blitzarves again. Zach Tui played as a forward. So some big headaches now for the Cats at selection. Now to the G today, David Teague made it 6 from 10 in charge of the Blues in his first official game. Big W.
Well, we speak about Brisbane winning at the Gabba and the crowd there being good for footy. This is equally as good. 52,000 there at the MCG today for a game that at the start of the year may have drawn 30,000 because that was the plight of both of these teams. So absolutely the right move to move on Brendan Bolton when Carlton did. So credit to them there, and probably absolutely the right move to instate David Teague when they did, because the fans have voted, the players wanted him, and they're playing a brand of footy that stacks up. So we speak about Brisbane and how quickly it can turn. Carlton should be setting their sights on that as the model for them in 2020.
We saw Levi Casbolt take a massive mark. He was huge. There was no Liam Jones and no Jacob Wiedering today for the Blues, so he was big in defence, as were these two men, Cade Simpson and Dale Thomas. Both been in the news this week. Simpson is going on again, but Daisy left his best for last.
He did. Cade Simpson's one of my absolute favourite players of all time. So 324 games, he's 35 years of age and still doing this type of stuff today. And the thing about him, look at the score here and look at the time, and he's still doing this and taking the game on, showing his leg speed, burning off younger opponents, and then using the footy like he has done for 18 years. So he deserves to go on. He'll be right up there in terms of Carlton greats by the time he's finished. And then a bit of flair from Daisy as well. He looked to play with a bit of freedom, a bit of enjoyment, and maybe he's got a point to prove, and maybe there's another club, probably Gold Coast, that might throw a bone his way, because he still looks pretty hungry and moving pretty well.
Clearly it wasn't on field for Dale, because if he's showing that, it has to be other things behind the scenes, and that night he had on the wine may have had a big part to say in that. Now, Kane, we saw the crowd you mentioned. There was a massive crowd at the G, and Mel Horsey, a few of those took to social media with some mixed emotions.
Yes, boys, it's been a big week for Blues fans. A new coach, a retirement, and the win today, as you mentioned, and it was all too much for one little Blues fan.
What happened?
Daisy's leaving.
What?
Daisy's leaving.
Oh, I know. But did you get a high five from somebody special?
Yeah.
Who?
Patrick.
You got a high five from Patrick. Oh, well done.
Oh, I love that. It melts your heart. How's the passion?
Great stuff, and for all the players that run around thinking it doesn't mean too much, giving high fives at the end of the game, that's what it does mean. Brilliant.
That's exactly right. Very well said. Now, it was an emotional day for Blues fans, as we've seen, but maybe even more so for Brisbane Lions fans. Now, Link McCarthy, he was the man of the moment after that win at the Gabba. Everyone was in awe of him, including his own teammates. Look at this they put up after the game. The man, the myth, the legend.
Should be pretty happy with his performance.
Not bad.
It was a big game at the Gabba today. Even bigger tomorrow at the G. Richmond and West Coast, and a famous footy family is going to take the field.
Yeah, so can you believe Daniel and Willie Rioli, they're obviously cousins, they've never played footy together or against each other in their whole lives at any stage. So tomorrow when Richmond takes on West Coast, it'll be the first time they line up against each other on the G. Now, Daniel posted on Instagram and he just said that they're two boys from the Tiwi Islands that used to dream of playing on the MCG, and they used to kick the footy on the street and on the road at night under the street lights, and tomorrow they'll finally get the chance to live out their dream against each other. So hopefully, boys, the first of many, because a very famous footy family.
That's so cool.
In good form too, both of them.
Yes. Now, speaking of good form, our man Mitch Cleary's been in good form with a nice little story involving a fill-in during the week. Mitch, take us through this tweet, because this is my favourite one to finish.
I can't believe how quickly this guy has got onto it. He's been doing the rounds today on social media, fill-in, obviously taking off Braden Sire after he played under that pseudonym in a local basketball game. He's been out of the shops pretty quick to get the letters and the numbers.
That's good gags. This blew up on Twitter. People like this. So kudos to this Mystery Pies fan. Fill in. That's a good effort.
All right, now blowing up. Clayton Oliver. He was blowing up at the MCG tonight. Melbourne's season just falling into despair now. How about this, Kane? You didn't like this?
I couldn't believe this vision. Sort of halfway through the second quarter, Fritsch just finds his teammate here with a beautiful little piece of play. Now, he's a younger teammate, and Clayton Oliver wants the ball. He reckons he's in the position to get it. I'm going to slow this down again. His teammate has marked the ball. He's going to have a shot in a very, very good position, a better position than what Clayton Oliver is in. He needs to pull his head in and take a good hard look at himself, because this is 2 minutes later. He's got options there with Jones and another one of his teammates out wide. He has a shot. So you've got to be pretty careful when you carry on like that and whinge because you don't get the ball, but then you're selfish and have a shot yourself. So good young player, potential leader, but not when he acts like that, and that's reflective of Melbourne's night on Friday night, which was a disaster in their season as a whole.
I was in the rooms last night. Couldn't believe how quiet and at a loss they were. It was absolutely shattering, and they've got a lot of soul searching to do over summer. Now, Kane, don't forget, you can watch every match of every round of the 2019 Toyota AFL Premiership with KO. Lets you instantly stream all of those matches, including 50 other sports. You can also stream all of Sunday's matches with Richmond against West Coast, the Giants up against the Dogs, and Hawthorn v Gold Coast. Plus, you can catch up on any of the games you missed with all the weekend's matches available on demand, ready to be watched at a time that suits you. Of those 50 other sports, there's plenty of other action, including the La Liga and Bundesliga that has started this weekend. So can't wait to get involved with that over the weekend. Now, Kane, to those matches tomorrow, probably his match of the season, this Richmond and West Coast game at the G.
Yeah, another absolute ripper. So many ramifications for all three games now, really. Even Hawthorn in play, but the Giants and the Bulldogs, that's going to be great in Sydney. And then Hawthorn and Gold Coast in Ruffy's farewell.
They could get a bit of percentage and really put some heat on the top 8. Now, to our one more thing for this weekend, it was all Lincoln McCarthy today at the Gabba. Took a massive hanger in his 50th game against his former club, showing that he can still stand up to the rigours of AFL, but it still took us back to something that happened 18 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think this mark is as good as the one we're about to show, but there are similarities between them. Now, that's Gary Moorcroft. That was Mark of the Year, back in 2001, I think it was, Mitch, and that's pretty similar, even the way that both of them land, but Lincoln McCarthy's was good and probably maybe the Mark of the Year, just for the circumstances of the game and the importance of it, but still not as good as Moorcroft's.
Crozier, Heaney, these guys might be in the mix.
No, I just think for the state of the game and how important it was, you've got to factor that in as well.
All right, thanks, Kane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel Horsey.
Thanks, boys.
Enjoy the footy tomorrow. We'll see you same time, same place here on the Round So Far next week.